Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and I'm very happy to be here with Patrick J. Adams, who plays Kippy in the Broadway revival of Take Me Out. And I really was drawn to and loved how this particular production really gets the locker room dynamics and team dynamics down of who breaks off and who feels ostracized. How long did it sort of take you all to lock into those team dynamics?
Only about 2 years of a pandemic. Really quick. But truly, in a way, I was talking to Ken, who plays Skip, about this yesterday, and that we've had such a unique experience on this play, one that you kind of will never get again because of the circumstances that we've all lived through, which was, right away, we all got along. I think Scott Ellis is like, he's got so many talents, but one of his big ones is knowing how to pull an incredible group of people together that he knows will fit. And he really values this idea that like one bad apple could really ruin the bunch. And so he, I think, worked really hard to shape this before any of us even met. So there was that first. Then when we all met, we all got along great, but we had to get to know each other. They organized this great baseball camp for the first 3 days of rehearsal before we even sat down and read a word of the script, which for me at the time, I was like, it's Broadway debut. I was nervous. I was like, let's get rehearsing. I want to use every minute to rehearse this thing. But it was it was brilliant to do it because over those 3 days, we formed a very quick bond just by throwing the ball around and learning catching techniques and like stuff that we were never actually, potentially we were going to use in the play, but I don't think anyone thought it was going to be a big part of the production. But it did teach us sort of who we were on the team and who we were to each other. And we already had nicknames for each other and we had inside jokes, and we just had this connection before we even got into the rehearsal room. So when we really sat down and started picking the play apart, we already felt really much closer. And then we rehearsed the whole play, and then the world shut down, and we all kind of like took this 3 weeks where we had all this buildup, this momentum into what we thought was going to be a production. And it just sort of sat there on the shelf. I think we all hoped it would come back. I didn't really know. I can only speak for myself. Like I kept Kippy in there. He was gestating the words. I'd certainly like go on long hikes and say these monologues just to give myself something to work on as an actor. So we got this like really crazy 2-year gestation period where we kept in touch with each other, and we were all, especially Jesse and I, like and Scott, we'd have dinner and when everybody was in town. And so when we got to this production and this moment, it's just something that I don't think we'd ever get to experience again. The length of time we've gotten to spend with the material, knowing each other, having that process that we had already gone through, getting to throw that process away and starting over again with a new process. There's just there's a sense of ownership and there's a sense of knowing each other that I don't think you could experience in any other production unless you ran it for years and years and years and years. And then you got to that second or third year and you're like, wow, look at this group of people. But by then you've probably changed out some of those people. So it's just been a very unique experience that I think has resulted into a level of closeness that I've never gotten to experience during doing a play.
Yeah, well, I think it definitely shows. And your character, more than anyone else, in a show with many beautiful monologues, you sort of are, in a way, the narrator and have a lot of moments where you are directly addressing the audience. Mm-hmm. How do you have to think about those moments differently than the rest of the play?
Absolutely. And I still think about them differently. I have to create a relationship with a group of people that I don't know. And so it's just a super unique challenge. And it's on some nights it's really hard. And truth be told, it's something I had done in a play before I'd done this play and really failed at it, in my opinion. And it had created a lot of anxiety for me in that production. And so part of my wanting to do this was almost wanting to heal the wound of feeling like I had just not done it well. And so when I read Kippy, I just saw this great opportunity to be like, okay, you can right that wrong. You can like learn what you didn't learn on that other production. But it's tough. You just have to be in the moment. I have to really like, I throw away the game plan a little bit, and just sort of pick up on what the audience is putting out there. You have to make fast friends with this sort of invisible blank entity out there. You can see some faces and I pick on some of them, and I use kind faces in the audience and spoke to them, but a lot of it is this sort of amorphous void that is sort of different to me every night. Sometimes it's a little more friendly, sometimes it's somebody who I have to convince a little more, and I'm enjoying playing with that energy of like, who are you tonight? What do I have to do a little more work to convince you, or are you already on my team and I can take advantage of that? And Kippy is sort of an unreliable narrator, as we find as the play moves forward too. There are some things which he's leaving out or unable to really talk about, which provides me with an interesting, like, how much am I showing, how scared am I to give all the information, at what points am I keeping things away? So I just try and keep myself really interested and curious on a nightly basis to not let it just become telling a story by rote.
And I would think I love seeing shows at the Hayes Theater because it's so intimate there with the actors. Does that help you feed off of the audience that way?
Yeah, it's a perfect theater for this play. I mean, we all talk about how lucky we are to be in there. It's yeah, I mean, it's even though I can't see everybody, it feels like I can wrap my head around that crowd, and I go into some other theaters, and I'm not from New York. I've obviously seen a lot of theater here, but I'm not as familiar with every theater. But every play I've seen since I've got here to New York, again, I walk into the theater and try to imagine the play in that space, and I go, whoa, this would be a lot, especially for Kippy, to try and forge this relationship with this giant group of people. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that space. It feels like such a home for this play.
Yeah, and it does feel like when you have those types of monologues, that it felt like so much of his character comes from what you're doing in between the lines. So I'm curious, how did you look at that, and how did you look to flesh him out?
Again, like, I try and not make it exactly the same every night. There's obviously some things that I fall back on, or things that I feel are really key to, like, the story being told in the right way, or Kippy's story specifically being told in the right way. But again, it's just like, there's a level of freedom that has come with the amount of time that I've gotten to spend with this material, and the amount of times I've walked around, Griffith Park in Los Angeles, saying these words to the mountains, and just thinking this through, and rather than thinking it through, feeling it through. So all the interstitial stuff, I mean, we discovered so much in rehearsal, as Scott really gave us the canvas and what was happening and who was moving where, when, things just fell into place. But I felt like I had this, like, giant toolkit of ideas of different ways I had said it in the mountains behind my house, that on any given day, once the blocking changed, or I got to see a light in tech, oh, that light's going to do that. What if I came out here? Well, that would mean that on this line, we're really emphasizing this part of it. Kippy's feeling about Davy in this line is becoming really, really clear. So I just tried to, like, I had done so much homework, more than I think anyone would ever have the chance to, because of the time we had away from it, that I just tried to, like, be present as possible in every moment of tech and of rehearsal, and just see where I had the opportunity to, like, see what the production was asking for. What does this line mean now with this tech, with these people on stage, with this being the transition that we're moving into? Because so much of Kippy is also managing these transitions from here to here. And the worst part of Kippy would just be traffic copying. This is what happened. Here it is. These are the people gone. So any opportunity I saw to demonstrate, like, an opinion that he have about this moment he's talking about, or about these characters that he's introducing, I'd at least give it a try. Sometimes, as an actor, I could get a little selfish and make it all about Kippy, and that wasn't always right. So, but it's good to know that he has a point of view and an opinion, and he's not just sort of telling the story and moving on.
Yeah, and the play also has these infamous extended shower scenes, and I'm just wondering, nudity is rare on stage anyway, but these are not just like moments. It's actually really important character development that happens during them. The first time you have to do that, does it feel daunting? Is it terrifying? What goes through your head with those moments?
It's such a strange I've struggled with stage fright. I've talked about this before in my work before. And it's weird how, so I was scared. I've been nervous about Broadway, about coming back to do a play. It's been a whole sort of journey for me to get to that place. The naked on stage part was almost so scary that I just put it on, like, it was like, I can't even begin to worry about that. It's too much. If I start thinking about that, I'll go crazy. So I'm just gonna put that over there and we'll just deal with that when we get to it. And then we kept getting closer to it and it didn't become more scary. And I can't quite understand why. I think it has something to do with how beautiful I think that scene is written wise. Like if I felt that the nudity was there as to be titillating or sexual or any of those things, I think I'd be way more uncomfortable and have a tough time like figuring out where I fit in that. But because it's a scene that's sort of anti-sexual, it's about laying it bare. It's about talking about how this is specifically my shower scene, obviously talking about how what Darren has done is just affected the way we look at each other, and that's our own bias. Like it's just so beautifully written what Richard has done in that scene with those words that I just always made that the job. And so somehow, even on the first day when obviously there's nerves, there's no doubt there's nerves, but the desire to want to say those words and communicate what's in that scene somehow is always beaten out the nerves still to this point. There's also something about doing it as a group of guys, like we're all in it together. It's nerve-wracking, but I'm proud of that scene. I'm proud of the work in that scene. I'm proud of our production in that scene. And I think a lot of people might come to the play going, ooh, the naked shower scene. And we get to like, be like, yeah, we're naked, but there's words in the scene that you don't like, you just think of it as the naked shower scene. Now you're actually going to get to experience what the scene is really about, which I think changes people's expectations. So I don't know. I think just my enjoyment of what I get to say has superseded my terror of being naked, but I keep waiting for it, honestly. Like, we're about halfway through our run now. I've done half our shows, and I'm like, I'm sure one day I'm gonna realize what I'm actually doing when I walk out, and it's gonna hit me. And it's strangely more nerve-wracking doing it in front of people I know. If I don't know anyone in this show that night, I feel fine. I'm like, I don't know any of these people. I won't know any of these people. It's fine. Like, but when my mom was there, I don't know why. Or like when friends of mine come, that's when it gets I have to do a little bit more heavy breathing before I walk out.
Yeah. Well, it's great because that scene is one of many examples of Kippy being sort of open and able to access his emotions and empathy in situations where that is not really the common thing. Why do you think he is able to do that? Because he's really Darren's biggest ally on the team.
I think you just said it. Like, I think Kippy is such a fascinating character to me because he is exactly what you would want a straight white male to be in this scenario that is Darren's, coming out. He's so loving, he's so supportive, he's smart, he's proud, he's aware of himself, he's aware of his own biases, he's aware of the toxic masculinity of this room. So you're kind of like, well, here's the perfect guy. He's the guy you want as your best friend. And yet, without going too much into the details of what happens, he that love, he makes a mistake. He goes too far in this worldview that everybody has to talk and everybody deserves their chance. And he gets a little bit of a savior complex. And I just found that so interesting because before that happens, you're like, man, this guy's got it all. What a good friend. And yet somehow he's always kept on the outside of Darren. And that comes, with a fatal price towards the end. I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah, it was, I was struck by how much, I think Richard wrote this in 2002. But it's still, we've had so many conversations about biases and sexuality and race, and it's surprising how much it still speaks to today. Were you expecting that when you signed on to this?
No, I mean, I knew that it was a great play, and like all great plays, that had a timeless quality to it, but I don't think I realized how much it would resonate with audiences, down to lines like, in Mason's monologue about, baseball acknowledges loss. Like, I don't think any of us even thought about what that was going to mean into an audience until we got in front of an audience, and suddenly there was an applause and laughter there. We're like, oh my God, of course. So there's all sorts of moments that seem to be even more resonant now than ever. That's just great writing. That's just a brilliant writer who is not writing about a time, is writing about humanity, is talking about what it is to be human. And as the play ages and as we change, it just takes on new shapes and means different things to different generations. That to me is how a play is wonderful and great, because it can just be performed forever and still mean something to generation after generation.
Yeah. And I was also curious, looking at your career, you've had success on screen, and I know you have done theater before, but was Broadway always a goal? And like, what made it the right time right now to do this?
I came to New York when I was 15 years old. I was at a theater camp. I'm from Canada, so we think we drove down on a bus or took a train and saw a bunch of theater, and I had that same experience of like, this is amazing. Yes, I don't know how, but I was in love with theater. I knew I wanted to study it. To say that I had like a Broadway dream, like it was always there, but never like, because I ended up going to school in Los Angeles, I kind of like felt like, oh, I guess that New York dream is over. And then I graduated from theater school and had some success in theater in Los Angeles. But every time I tried to make that transition in New York or get to know people in New York, there were people who were fans and they'd come let me audition for stuff. There was never anything that felt right. And then Suits happened and I sort of disappeared for 7 years, and it just felt like it kept getting deferred. So of course the dream was there, but it also felt like it was something that maybe, especially 40 years old this year, like that was maybe just not going to happen. So when this arrived, it was such a gift. I just want to do great plays. I've learned that by doing plays, is that like I didn't want to come to Broadway just to be on Broadway. Right, like there may have been a couple of opportunities of like just do it and get to say you did Broadway. That wasn't really interesting to me, because I'd done enough plays to know that you need to be committed, you need to be interested. These are long runs. This is 8 shows a week. Like you have to love what you're doing. You have to care. You have to be invested. So I knew that not only did I want to be on Broadway, but I wanted to be here with something that really moved me and felt like I could be invested for that long. So when this play came, it was just, I mean, my first reaction, I didn't know the play. It's the naked baseball play. I don't want to be naked on Broadway. I hadn't read it before. I immediately judged it as that and said, no, I don't think I'll be able to do that. And then of course thought, well, okay, you have to read it at least before you say you can't do that. And then read it and thought, oh my God, I have to do this play. Oh no, I'm going to be naked on Broadway. And yeah, it's such a blessing to be able to be working here, to be welcomed with such open arms, but to be able to do it with a play that I so deeply love, and with a group of people who I just can't, I can't imagine a better group of people or a better director to do it with. So it's been the dream was there, but I didn't quite realize, every day I get to that theater and realize like I couldn't have even dreamed this scenario.
Well, I'm glad the dream was deferred no longer, because it's excellent work in this play. So thank you so much for sitting down with me, Patrick. If you are watching at home, subscribe to Gold Derby and keep in touch with us throughout this Broadway season. Patrick, thanks again. It's great work.
Thanks, Sam.